But Pickens was incredible. He had 144 receiving yards on 9 catches with that touchdown we showed you at the top of the show. And leave it to Jerry to do a Jerry Jones thing. After the game, he said, I've never seen a performance like that. It was poetic the way that he was making those moves out there. It was like he was in an opera or something out there, a ballet. Jerry, his contract expires after the season. And I know how this game works, and I think you've made this comment in the past. You know, when you put excessive praise, and we may have talked about it in the context of Raheem Morris saying Bijan Robinson's the best player in all of football, you're taking a risk if you say that stuff when a guy's due for a contract, because I guarantee you that the same agent who represents Micah Parsons, David Mulugeta, who also represents George Pickens, he's not going to let comments like that be forgotten, and it pumps up the guy's value. And what are the Cowboys going to do? They were talking about some of it on the broadcast last night. Like, are they going to have a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase situation? They don't have a whole lot of alternatives. And I don't know, do they franchise tag him? Do they tag him and trade him? Do they give him a big contract? He's going to want something that starts with a 3. I think that's why he's wearing number 3. And it's going to be very difficult with all the commitments the Cowboys have to keep that guy around. And by saying the stuff Jerry Jones said last night, for a guy who seems to be a master of business leverage, that's not the thing you want to say. Let others say that. When you say it, you're only going to cost yourself more money and cause yourself more headaches.
Yeah, and as you watched the game last night, though, to me it was they're tagging George Pickens. Like, when you just look at he gets benched at the beginning of the game, sits down the first series, comes in, unbelievable. You're watching him, and like, not to forget, like, CeeDee Lamb is the other receiver. Like, what do we think of CeeDee Lamb and his production? And you're watching and you're like, George Pickens is the best player on the football field right now. Like, this is incredible. The plays he's making, what he's doing. Then he has this, the touchdown, he catches it, he breaks a tackle, and then, all right, there's no more room left. And the cutback to go in the end zone, I'm like, ooh. I was watching the game, I said, ooh, that's pretty right there. And he jumps on the field goal post, and it was just like, all right, don't pay him. All right, pay him. Don't pay him. It was just all of these things put together. To me, it's a prime case for a team that says, hey, we're just going to tag this guy. Like, we're not gonna take the chance to see what it looks like if we give him this huge contract. We're just going to tag him. And from my time in the league, like, that's what happens with guys like that. They tag them, maybe they tag them again, and they just say, hey, we're willing to see how this all plays out before we decide to invest all in. Or they tag them in a window, or like you said, for the Cowboys, do they tag them and trade them to a team that possibly says, hey, if we just have George Pickens for this year, we can win a Super Bowl? I think where it gets interesting is, like you said, David Mulugeta is one of the best agents in all of football, has a ton of clients, understands the business. Like, after this season, do we see George Pickens on the field again without a long-term contract? I think that's a very real thing, because when you watch this young guy, he's phenomenal. Like, when he's on the field, and you think about when he first got to Dallas the first couple weeks, it was like, how are they going to use him? CeeDee Lamb goes out, and like, it's just opened the floodgates for George Pickens to be the best possible version of himself he can be. And it's been a lot of fun to watch.
I really blew an opportunity today. I should be wearing my old Steelers George Pickens number 14 jersey, because I was an early adopter of George Pickens. I saw the potential. I saw the talent. I was at a Monday night game a couple of years ago, and it's great when you're at a game and you can really see everything that's happening. I mean, the guy was open on every play. They never got him the ball the way they should have gotten him the ball. Designed plays to get it to him. The same frustrations that A.J. Brown airs out all the time in Philly, George Pickens was dealing with that for the most part quietly in Pittsburgh, but not quietly enough, or they wouldn't have traded him to Dallas and given the money that could have gone to him to DK Metcalf, who had no relationship with the team whatsoever. But now that the Cowboys have unlocked this, I think you've hit on something important here. Tagging him may not be enough, because they'll have a strategy for turning that tag into a long-term deal. And if you tag him, he doesn't have to accept it. He can skip all of training camp. He can show up just before week 1, sign the tag, accept the tender, get his full franchise tag money. And another thing to keep in mind here, I don't want to stir the pot anymore than I already do deliberately. But we got to remember the history in Dallas. When they decided CeeDee Lamb was the guy, they moved on from Amari Cooper. As we're outlining all the different ways this can play out, if we make a flow chart here, we have to accept the possibility that CeeDee Lamb is the one who gets traded, that he's the one who's not there. When you see comments like this, think about it. I'm the guy wearing number 88. I'm the next guy in the line that goes back to Drew Pearson, Michael Irvin, Des Bryant. I'm the guy. Jerry's saying all this stuff about the other guy. What's the message to me? And look, everybody always says all the right things and they celebrate together and they get along. But at some level, you have to at least account for the possibility that they're going to make a decision between the two guys and it's not going to be George stays and CeeDee goes. It possibly could be George stays and CeeDee goes. I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying it will. All I'm saying is it would be foolish to not at least have that somewhere, one branch of the flow chart. That's something that you at least consider when you sit down and look at this if you're the Cowboys. And when the boss is saying this guy's poetry in motion, how can you ignore the possibility that if we just can't make these cap dollars work, he's the guy we have to keep?
Yeah, I think the Cincinnati Bengals showcase that. When you watch them right now, and we all love Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but you watch the way their team's built, and you're like, this is not how you win football games. And you look at Dallas, it's the same thing. You have Dak Prescott, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in all of football, CeeDee Lamb, one of the highest paid receivers. You really can't afford to make Pickens one of the highest paid receivers. And I think this situation is a little different too, is George Pickens wasn't drafted there. Like T. Higgins, it meant something to him to stay in Cincinnati where he was comfortable, the only team he had played. George Pickens has now realized, I was in Pittsburgh. Hey, they said blah, blah, blah. It was a struggle, whatever. It didn't work out. I came to Dallas. I did the same thing. I came, dominated, show I can play. There's now a confidence in him. I'll go to another team. I'll be productive on another team. I want my money. I don't necessarily have to be in Dallas. Now, we don't know. Maybe he fell in love with Dallas and he wants to remain there. I don't know that. But I think that's the thing. When you build a team, no matter how much you love certain players, you got to make a decision. You got to do what's best. And I will say it was a little surprising seeing Pickens and Lamb sit out, because CeeDee Lamb, I think, in Dallas and for that team is seen as kind of the steady hand, the guy that leads by example, the guy that does those. So to see him also kind of be suspended that first series of the game, I don't think that was a very good look too, because I think one of the arguments would be as you went forward, if you were deciding between these two guys, where you would say like, hey, CeeDee's he's the leader, and again, he made one mistake. But I just think that is something that we'll have to watch as you bring that up. I wasn't even thinking about CeeDee Lamb possibly being on the trade block or whatever they do to decide the future of this team. I think it's interesting because you just wouldn't have pictured CeeDee and George Pickens sitting out together to start the game. Like CeeDee Lamb is seen as the guy that takes George Pickens under his wing and pushes him forward. So, again, they'll figure out some things. I think the thing that they do have is Dak Prescott's played unbelievable football this year. And I think they'll have to decide going forward how much is going to be Dak staying there, or do they go young at quarterback and say, let's keep these two young receivers? They have a lot of possibilities.
Well, and Dak's contract basically keeps him there for 2 more years beyond this one. They have no say in that matter. The structure, the guarantees, it would wreak complete and total havoc on the salary cap if he wouldn't be there. Oh. And Dak is a key to all of this, too. On the day that the Cowboys traded for George Pickens, it happened during the show. We got Jason Garrett on, and he made a point that I think continues to resonate. For the first time in his career, George Pickens has a quarterback who can connect with him and a quarterback that can get the ball to him on a regular basis. He didn't have that in Pittsburgh. He got to Pittsburgh after Ben Roethlisberger was gone. And we've seen the revolving door in Pittsburgh, and it just hasn't worked out at the quarterback position there. And that's made it harder to get the ball to a George Pickens and to have someone who can control George Pickens. We always rely on Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh to be the guy who speaks to the better angels of players who might be inclined to create problems. If you have a quarterback with the right personality who can bring these guys together and make it all work, that's a key. And one last point on CeeDee Lamb. When they traded Amari Cooper, they had given up a first-round pick to get him. I remember they boasted on the night of the draft, the April after they made the in-season trade with the Raiders to get Amari Cooper and gave up their first-round pick. Oh, I'm going to be watching film of Amari Cooper when we're on the clock. Like, that was their first-round pick. But then they had to sign him to a 5-year, $100 million contract. They kept him for 2 and then traded him. So, remember, they're all pieces in a machine, and they're going to get removed at some point and replaced with another. So we just have to at least acknowledge the possibility that Pickens becomes the new 88 in Dallas, and the current 88 isn't there anymore. And Pickens has to take into account, am I going to be in a place with a quarterback like Dak? Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.